I'll tell you this now, and I'm very happy to revisit this view. And talking of constitutional questions, one thing that inevitably comes to mind, and we don't know if Starmer will survive, but one thing that does come to mind is that the last Prime Minister to serve a full term was David Cameron. The inherent instability of our politics is a question that people are asking. To what extent is this a consequence of polarization fueled by social media, by the long tail of economic woes created by the 2008 financial crash and exacerbated by quantitative easing and so on? I think it's premature to draw conclusions about the governability or ungovernability of the country. But, Maddie, you've been following politics and observing the House of Commons throughout this inherently volatile period. Do you think that if I say it's too early to draw conclusions, I'm just being complacent?
It worries me greatly. I don't think you're saying it's not true, but, let's see what happens. But it does worry me greatly. I think with every change of government and every disappointment, the electorate becomes that bit less patient and liable to forgive. And therefore, the window for a new government to come in and make a positive difference and perhaps any kind of forgiveness for mistakes becomes narrower and narrower. So I worry greatly, and I worry that whatever replaces, well, it's not only Starmer, but perhaps this Labour government will have an uphill battle, and therefore no government can be too complacent. And part of the Labour Party's problem was that it genuinely thought that governing the country is not as hard as it seems, and that the real problem were those bastard Tories. And don't get me wrong, there is so much to criticise about what the Conservative Party did, but they came in without a real plan, it seems, despite having all that time to prepare. And what's becoming clear is that it's an absolute nightmare trying to govern, and therefore maybe they should be a little more restrained in their criticism. One argument I'm seeing a lot is that, well, Starmer's a great guy and he's not like his predecessors who were more nakedly self-interested. I definitely think that the Labour Party added to this moralistic anger in their engagement with things like Partygate, where everything was treated as equally bad. Whether it was Rishi Sunak's, I think, objectively really unfair fixed penalty notice, that was kind of put in the same camp as like really serious infringements of lockdown. And they tried to traduce the reputation of like a decent, honest person and say that he was exactly like Boris Johnson. That they really added to this. And I remember even when Dominic Cummings got caught out with Barnard Castle, and very few people said at the time, it's shocking that the whole street is filled with journalists who are intimidating his family. I remember saying that this is wrong at the time and just getting shouted down by like commentators and, supporters of the opposition. I just felt, I think they've really done a lot to add to this moralistic fervour, and now it's coming to bite them in the arse. Sorry, pardon my language.
No, you're completely right. Views will differ about Partygate, Boris, the degree of outrage.
I mean, obviously you shouldn't be a hypocrite, but they treated everything like it was a kind of Stormforce 12 of horror,
precisely.
Whether it was Rishi Sunak or something more serious. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it wasn't important.
No, this is where I'm in violent agreement with you, because my comments about Boris were an attempt to be fair as a prelude to saying nobody would think that Rishi Sunak was a indecent, indecorous fowler of political nests who was only in it for an opportunity to have fun, go wild and make money.
Yeah, don't drink all the orange squash at once, Rishi.
Yes.
And sorry to interrupt, but
no.
I just also remembered recently in the Commons where Keir Starmer, who's, obviously a highly decorated lawyer, referred to Rishi Sunak's fixed penalty notice as a conviction.
Yeah.
Like, that's an outright lie, but he thought he could get away with that to score a point in PMQs. They haven't always comported themselves in a very decent way.
No, he did. Starmer did everything he thought he could to win. That's politics. He decided to enter the arena, to unsheath the sword, and when his opponent stumbled, not to let him get up, but to stab him in the gonads. So, in that sense, the claims of, decency and so on, of course, I'm sure he's, delightful to close friends and all the rest of it. But he chose politically to behave in this way, so it is perhaps unsurprising that other people feel less compunction.
And also, if we're coming hot on the heels of various Conservative Party defenestrations of leaders,
yes.
If someone wants to talk about a corruption scandal in the Labour Party, you can't then say, oh, well, you guys had Liz Truss.
Yeah.
You know, you had Boris. And you're like, well, what happened to Liz Truss and Boris Johnson? They were turfed out by their own party pretty sharpish.
Quite.
That's not really a defence for why we shouldn't talk about this scandal involving your party, is it?
No. Just one thing on the Conservatives on this. Of course, I'm party pris, but Kemi Badenoch was onto this last September. She got both Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney skewered on the Peter Mandelson question. She returned to it. She has not only seen Mandelson and McSweeney go, but she's forced Starmer into the most perilous position he's been in his political life. She's done that with forensic questioning and also careful research work that she's marshalled. In the meantime, and listeners, please get in touch if you think this is unfair, what the hell have Reform been doing? They've been a sideshow in this. So, I think part of the job of an opposition is to hold the government to account. And that is what Kemi Badenoch has been doing in the last few weeks, while Reform have been distracting from that. Listeners will make up their own minds about what they consider to be important. But if your aim, or rather, if your hope for our politicians is to hold the Prime Minister and his ministers to account at this point, then I think it is Kemi Badenoch 6, Nigel Farage 0 at the moment.
Well, I do think that there's an important distinction to be made here between, I think objectively the Conservative Party have had a very good couple of weeks. Their attack unit is working exceptionally well, and they have been at the forefront of some of the of attacking on some of Labour's big scandals and weaknesses, and that's important. But I think there's a difference between they have objectively been winning these battles and it will necessarily make a huge difference with the country, with the general public.
It may not.
It may well be the case that people look at this and say, oh, they're all as bad as each other, the Uniparty, etc., even if the attack has been coming effectively from CCHQ, and say, well, it's only Reform UK that has a chance because they're different from these guys.
I don't want to be too much of a Caledonian...
No, but you're right. Like, they do deserve credit. You're right. Credit where it's due.
I don't want to be too much of a Caledonian Cassandra, and I may be proven wrong, but I remember in the summer of 2022, I'd originally backed Kemi for the leadership. She was knocked out. It was a Liz versus Rishi battle. Towards the end of that summer, everyone thought Liz is going to win. The bandwagon was rolling. She's beating Rishi 2-1 in the polls. All sorts of people who should have known better were getting behind Liz. At that stage, I thought, my political career was over, so it didn't much matter. But I said, I don't care what the opinion polls say. Liz is not fit to be Prime Minister. Rishi would be better. I'll tell you this now, and I'm very happy to revisit this view. It is wrong to say, oh, well, I think X is going to win, so therefore I'll, back them. Look objectively at the performance of the two. And when Starmer has been under pressure, Kemi has intensified that pressure. And what Reform have done is change the subject. So when Starmer was under pressure in September, Reform unveiled a defection in the shape of Danny Kruger. Yesterday, Reform unveiled another defection as well, a chap called Simon Dudley, distinguished former council leader, and so on. That makes sense if what their sole aim is to overtake the Conservative Party. Fair enough, politics is politics.
Yes.
But I take a couple of steps back, and my judgment is not who's doing better in the polls. My judgment is who's doing better for the country in the job that opposition politicians should have at the moment. And that's where Kemi Badenoch is ahead.
Yeah, and Reform UK may also feel that actually deposing Keir Starmer might harm their chances because he's so terribly unpopular. There may be some strategy to it. But I agree. I don't think that we should only be governed by opinion polls. I equally think there can sometimes be a danger of thinking that things are going well in Westminster, things are going well in PMQs. It necessarily is reaching out to voters across the UK.
And I wouldn't want anyone to think that I'm now predicting some sea change in opinion polls. I'm simply observing something that matters to me and inviting people to draw their own conclusions. And it may well be the case that people think that my judgment is awry, or that there are bigger issues here, and that what the country needs is a change from all of the legacy parties and so on. People will make their own mind up on that. I draw certain conclusions from these events, and these conclusions sort of reinforce my sense that Kemi Badenoch, having been criticised in the past for passivity, now at the very least deserves credit for her dissection of Starmer.